So I have some good sci-fi fantasy news, and I have some bad sci-fi fantasy news. Which do you want first? First, I want to start with HBO's The Watchmen. In case you don't know, it's more of a sequel to the Watchmen graphic novel, and it's set 30 years in the future, and it's dealing with if things had continued as we ended them at the end of the graphic novel, what would this world now be like? So on that, the director said, I have such reverence for the original material, and the idea of just doing that again was not something I necessarily wanted to see as a fan. So I started to think about how Watchmen was written in the mid-80s, and it was about the mid-80s. It was very much its time. You were reading Watchmen when it came out, you would put it down and feel like, okay, it's an alternate history, but I still feel a lot of the things that are happening in this comic book. You would put it down and feel like, okay, it's an alternate history, but I still feel a lot of the things that are happening in this comic book. So I asked myself, what happened 30 years later? What happened to Adrian after he saved the world? What was the world like after this giant squid on it? Robert Redford was running for president, so what if he won and was president for almost 30 years? I started to get captivated by those ideas. And I still absolutely agree with him that it would have been boring just to redo The Watchmen. Instead of that, kind of doing inspiration from it and showing what that world would be like in the future. You're not going to beat the graphic novel. The graphic novel is so good, so why retread that? Speaking of the graphic novel, the artist that worked on it, Dave Gibbons, also talked about how excited he is about the Watchmen HBO TV show, stating, what particularly attracted me to this was what Damon had in mind was not a prequel or a sequel, but an extrapolation. What Alan and I did with Watchmen was we initially said, what if superheroes really existed? What would they be like? And what would the world be like? Which is quite a big question. I think what Damon is asking here is the question, if that happened back in 1986, what would the world be like now? That 30 years is a long enough time that all sorts of things can happen, and you end up a million miles away from the circumstances of the graphic novel, but still with extreme fidelity to it. There isn't anything in this that contradicts the graphic novel, so to me, it is an amplification of it, rather than a dilution. And I think what you can take from that, and of course I can be wrong, is that this is an extrapolation of the Watchmen graphic novel. So it's not a direct sequel. They're not saying this is absolutely what happened afterwards. This is just us imagining, okay, this is where the world would be like decades later if we went off of what happened in the graphic novel. And I like it. It's looking at future possibilities, but not saying this is 100% set in stone. And if you like comics as much as me, you know that nothing is set in stone. Ever. So yeah, I'm super excited about HBO's Watchmen. I believe it premieres October 20th. I'm going to be reviewing it, and I can't wait. I also like that the director hasn't been very smug about his HBO Watchmen series. He said, I really hope I did a great job, but it's not completely up to me if I did do a good job. So, thanks for caring about us. Okay, next, and I know I recently did a video saying the Birds of Prey trailer looks terrible, and I'm more than sure there were quite a few people that said, well, if you don't like it, don't watch it! Which is the stupidest argument ever for anything, because I love DC, I'm obsessed with Batman. People that have been a part of this channel for a while know I'm obsessed with Batman and his villains, so I want to see this film do well. It's in my best interest, and I'm going to see it even if I absolutely hate it. You know, hate watching is a thing. But recently, Ewan McGregor shared that the Birds of Prey film is actually a feminist film, and it will focus on misogyny, which just... oh no. So Ewan said, what interested me with Birds of Prey is that it's a feminist film. It's very finely written. There is in the script a real look at misogyny, and I think we need that. We need to be more aware of how we behave with the opposite sex. We need to be taught to change. This is my opinion. I personally think instead of focusing on a particular gender or sex, instead we just focus on, as humans in general, we treat each other like trash. If someone talks differently looks different, likes or dislikes something you feel the opposite about, we attack people. So I really don't think this is a man problem. I think this is just us being a shitty human being problem. And I kind of wish we'd stop pointing the fingers at men. That would be really nice. Ewan also explained that he's hoping this film will change how society views women and treats them, stating, "Misogynists in movies are often extreme. They rape, they beat women. And it is legitimate to represent people like that, because they exist, and they are obviously the worst. But in the Birds of Prey dialogues, there's always a hint of everyday misogyny, of those things you say as a man you do not even realize, mansplaining. All of it's in the script in a very subtle way. I found that brilliant." I really don't want to stay on this topic too much because it's a hotbed, but I kind of wish that we just in general paid attention to how we treat people, not trying to put us in boxes, because we try to do that way too much. And I will add on, and this is something I have learned especially from being on YouTube, the men that are sexist towards me and say things like, "Oh, you have your tits out for attention and blah 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 and I can't possibly dress like this for me," are the same people that also treat men terribly and call them names like faggot and rip on them for having emotions. So it's not that these people are misogynists, they're just terrible human beings. They're just in general shitty people. I don't know why we're not realizing that. Any person I've ever seen sexist towards a woman is also sexist towards men and a complete twat. They're just a bad person. I guess a happier note when it comes to DC, the Joker movie is breaking records and making a shit ton of money. So I'm hoping this encourages Warner and the DC cinematic universe to make more movies like the Joker, because it was phenomenal. Also, I'm hoping that they made enough money that they bring back Phoenix's Joker for some other movie. Robert Pattinson's Batman? Alright, let's go to Martin Scorsese saying that Marvel films is not cinema and the backlash from that. So a lot of people were angry at him for saying that, but we got some Marvel Cinematic Universe actors clapping back at him. I think clapping back is the term we use, right? So Gunn spoke on this, stating, "Martin Scorsese is one of my 5 favorite living filmmakers. I was outraged when people picketed The Last Temptation of Christ without having seen the film. I'm saddened that he's now judging my films in the same way." Robert Downey Jr. also spoke on it, stating, "I mean, it plays in theaters. I appreciate his opinion because I think it's like anything. We need all of the different perspectives so we can come to center and move on. It'd be like saying Howard Stern isn't radio. It makes no sense to say it. There's a lot to be said for how these genre movies, and I was happy to be a part of the problem, if there is one, change the art form of cinema. When you come in like a stomping beast and you eliminate the competition in such a demonstrative way, it's phenomenal." Samuel L. Jackson also had something to say about it, which essentially came to, dude, fuck off. In other news, Royce Pearson, a actor who is playing a role in the Netflix The Witcher TV series, expressed what some of the other cast members of The Witcher have been saying. This isn't Game of Thrones. Probably don't compare it to Game of Thrones, which I feel like everybody is doing. So he said, "It's an amazing ensemble piece, and every character has their own journey and their own story. The Witcher has its own world and universe, and there are always going to be genre comparisons. But I think The Witcher has its own proper characters and their own struggles, and I think that's what people will see and really connect with." I also love the people that are saying The Witcher series is a ripoff of Game of Thrones, but these books were written before George ever created the world of Ice and Fire, so it would be George ripping off the author. I'm not really sure where that argument comes from. So I think you should honestly give The Witcher a try as a standalone and not because you think it's going to be the next Game of Thrones, but I mean, you can do whatever you want. Or can you? Oh, lastly, Lauren Cohan is coming back to The Walking Dead in season 11. So you're not going to see her at all during this season, but season 11, she's back, which should be interesting. I understand she's coming back for a variety of reasons, including her new TV show being canceled, but I mean, let's see where they go with her. All right, so that's some sci-fi fantasy news for you. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Do you like the idea of Birds of Prey being a feminist-centered film and about misogyny? Are you excited about Watchmen on HBO? Are you excited that the Joker film is doing so well? And how do you feel about Scorsese saying what he did about the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Like, subscribe, and let me know in the comment section down below.